thank you all for coming. We'll talk about healthcare. We'll start with an announcement. Argentina, Netherlands is 2-2, and they're going to overtime. So I see celebrations in the back. Let's see where it lands. So the theme for today, for the next 45 minutes or so, is the link between investments, economic development, and healthcare, and the contribution that healthcare can have in that field, particularly in Greece. We'll do four things. I'll give some very brief, high-level thoughts and mention some work that we did for the government with Vassilis a few months ago. And then Vassilis will go much more in depth around the opportunity in the sector, specific areas, what the Greek government has already done, and what the private sector has already done. And I'm sure we'll have time for questions as well in the end. The healthcare or the life sciences sector, more specifically, is a significant, in my view, source of growth, source of investment, source of innovation. Two global trends, and we're not going to delve into them in too much detail, but will play a role and they're relevant for Greece as well. One is this intersection of data science, technology, and healthcare, and a lot of innovation and a lot of action is happening there. Particularly relevant as in Greece we have the right talent, and it's an area that doesn't need too much capex. So smaller countries without the massive, industry behind them can actually thrive in that area. The second one, which creates also unique opportunities, is this move in healthcare broadly from treating the sick, which is what we've been doing for 30 years. Somebody gets sick and we have a drug or we have a knee replacement or something and we fix them in quotes, to preventing disease. And a lot of opportunities arise from that. How do you manage to prevent disease? A few months ago, a group of executives from the US, from the UK, were asked by the Prime Minister to provide some thoughts and some views on what the Greek, or how the Greek ecosystem can develop, and Vassilis was an integral part of that, of the core team on behalf of the government. I'll mention three things and then we'll go into detail. One, we have a lot more of the ingredients than we think to attract investments, to create opportunities in the sector in Greece. And a lot has already been done, and we'll talk about those. Now, let's all be real at the same time, right? We will not be Boston, we will not be San Francisco overnight. We may get there in many years, but there are a lot of things we can do today. We can do clinical trials, we talk about that, manufacturing, AI-driven companies that can arise in Greece or broadly in the region. Also, commercialize innovative research that's happening in Greek universities or research centers. Again, that last one is probably a little more longer term, but there's the first three can happen immediately. It will take commitment, it will take consistency from the government and the private sector, but we can get there. And importantly, there's not much need for government funds. So this is not where the sector is dying for the government to go and fund it. The remit here is, how can we attract outside capital? How can we get international, sophisticated healthcare investors to come invest in Greece, large corporates to come invest in Greece, rather than say, hey, government, can you please give us some money to grow the sector? So I'll stop here. Vassilis is much more knowledgeable on a lot of these things than I am. He was, for the few of you that may not know him, he was the alternate Minister of Health, and he currently serves as an advisor to the Prime Minister on all things healthcare. More importantly, in my view, he combines both a knowledge of the healthcare sector, but also a very market-driven, investment-driven, commercial perspective and view. And as I said before, he was very involved both in the work we did for the Prime Minister's office. Also, he had the, I don't know if I should say pleasure, that's probably not pleasurable, but managing and leading a lot of the response that the government did during the pandemic, which I can imagine was not an easy task. And yeah, exactly. So with that, I'll pass it to Vassilis for the main course, and we'll have some time for questions in the end.
Thank you, Vangelis. Good evening, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. I would like to thank the forum, Olga and Nikos Bornozis, for giving me the chance to share my thoughts with you in this, let me say, this post-pandemic forum. In addition to what the previous guest speakers here today, who responded to the question, why invest in Greece? When it comes to healthcare, three additional reasons support the reason why. Firstly, the country holds unique characteristics, such as highly trained personnel with international recognition, world-class facilities, and advanced medical technology infrastructure. The Greek government definitely supports entrepreneurship in the health sector, thereby strengthening innovation, research, and development. And the results of the policy of these governments are evident. The Greek pharmaceutical industry has recently announced investment plans of more than 400 million euros. Pfizer, everybody knows that, has the headquarters of an international digital technology center in Thessaloniki, while another major big pharmaceutical multinational company, Boehringer Ingelheim, is investing over 100 million euros in the next coming years for the period 2019 to 2025 to expand the production activities of the factory in Koropi, Athens. Secondly, a mature research and innovation ecosystem already exists in the country. It's worth mentioning that the life sciences field in the Greek startup ecosystem constitutes 16.2% of the sector pool, by far the most popular. Moreover, and I'm referring to the study you mentioned, Vangelis, Greece has already laid the foundations, enabling the country to become internationally competitive in the field of innovative pharmaceutical biopharmaceutical industry. And we had this state-of-the-art report that was submitted to the Prime Minister, and we have done several steps since the report became public, and I strongly believe that in the next coming period, Greece will manage to be in the map of the biopharmaceutical sector. And thirdly, the healthcare sector stands in the intersection of a multi-billion recovery plan. And I'm referring to the National Recovery and Resilience Plan. A component is dedicated to improve the accessibility, the sustainability, and the resilience of the healthcare system, with funding exceeding 1.5 billion euros. The components' main building blocks include the redesigning of the overall healthcare system through organizational reforms, aiming to optimize the utilization of financial resources and create a quality framework, and moreover, focusing on the reform of the primary health care sector and reorganize the services offered towards prevention and promotion of health. We strongly believe in the government that growth opportunities for health are pivoted around three major pillars: digital transformation, value-based healthcare, and patient centricity. The Greek government has carefully designed an ambitious digital transformation program for the health sector, which will be funded mainly through the RRF program. Technology companies should grasp the opportunity to invest in Greece and offer innovative products and solutions tailored to the need of the end users. The available funding is quite significant considering the size of the Greek market. It's a huge opportunity for information technology healthcare firms to provide solutions that will cut costs, such as remote patient monitoring, which is delivered through telehealth platforms, and lead to closer follow-up and care, especially for the elderly or needed-based patients. A good example of the primary health care sector. A lot of the care that is being delivered in hospitals today will shift to an outpatient setting, leading to the growth of ambulatory care, where a lot of procedures can be done in a day care setting and home-based care using the latest technology. Our target is Greece to become first a hub in the field of clinical trials. In doing so, we have redesigned the institutional framework under which clinical trials are conducted and ensure the attraction of both basic research and product development research. Clinical practice, as you know, is continuously improving in Greece, and the level of skills and infrastructure has proven to be more than competitive at the EU level, as has been observed in the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Moreover, due to a 2019 law that has enabled mandatory returns to be offset by corresponding investments in certain areas of R&D, create a favorable environment for clinical trials. We also believe that Greece is becoming a big data analytics hub. Greece is one of the few countries to have electronic systems collecting data of 11 million users, 100% of the population, approximately 60,000 prescribing physicians and 11,000 pharmacists. Utilizing existing systems in conjunction with the digital transformation of the health sector open up new possibilities for the use of big data and real-world evidence data. It's worth mentioning that open access to this kind of data is the prerequisite for growth of startups in e-health and the collaboration between universities and clinical centers. Moreover, Greece attracts several service-type businesses that interdigitate with the drug discovery, development, and commercialization process, generally with an underpinning of sophisticated data processing, such as sample processing, medical data handling, and market access services. Also, Greece provides a favorable environment for investing in the manufacturing of pharmaceuticals. Production output has been steadily increasing. A sharp increase in the Industrial Production Index indicates enhanced efficiency, plus 92% in Q4 2020 versus 2015. With a total of 20% of pharmaceuticals already manufactured contractually, there is a significant opportunity for multinationals to form joint ventures in production and scale up their operations in Greece. Notable incentives have been launched in the past few years, aiming to grow local investments and attract foreign direct investments. The Greek government has also a strategic vision to become a medical and wellness destination. We seize every opportunity, we promote business partnerships, and we ensure high-quality services. Also, a robust strategy in providing healthcare to the chronically ill and the elderly, especially for citizens seeking for relocation options when it comes to their retirement, is already being deployed. We strongly believe it is evident that the investors community recognized the successful responsiveness of Greece to the pandemic crisis. And during this crisis, the health system became stronger with more financial resources injected in, expansion of critical infrastructure such as ICUs, internal care units, and a significant amount of healthcare professionals being hired to cover needs. The Greek government is committed to a strong, resilient, efficient, and value-based healthcare system that meets all needs of patients. And the structural reforms currently under deployment we had planned for many reforms, but due to the pandemic, things went a bit slower. Create a favorable investment environment, and this is evident by the fact that a significant number of international investors have already established a strong footprint in the country. Also, the attractiveness survey of Ernst & Young for Greece for 2021 demonstrates that the image of the country as an investment destination continues to improve, with the pharmaceuticals and healthcare sector recording an overall increase of 62% in foreign direct investments. The Greek government has explicitly laid out the areas of focus over the next years, and we would like to provide the dedicated investment promotion and facilitation efforts to support investments in the country. No doubt, Greece is an attractive investment destination, and through this forum, we invite all investors to seize the opportunities that have arisen in the healthcare sector in Greece. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no protocol or next steps, but we'd love to take questions if anybody has them. I'm happy to start with a couple. I don't know if there's a microphone around. It's a small enough room. We can hear everybody. Oh, sorry. There we go. I got it.
Because I don't think they heard you.
Okay, so what I was saying is we have no protocol for moving this forward. We happy to take questions from people. No, you're fine. Happy to take questions from people. I can kick it off with a couple, and we'll take it from there. One that's in my mind and probably in other people's minds is you mentioned, Vassilis, incentives for true innovation in Greece, whether it's R&D incentives and tax incentives and all that. There's have been talks recently and articles about perceived disincentives when you talk about, we're one of the countries that has pretty high clawbacks, for example, for innovative pharmaceutical companies and all that. What's your comment on that in terms of how the government is truly looking to incentivize innovation in the country?
Thank you for the question. It's an opportunity to clarify some things. Everybody supports, and the government supports, that the clawback mechanism is not a first choice.
Yeah.
A first choice procedure in order to contain the rising of pharmaceutical expenditure. It was supposed to have been abolished so far, but we haven't managed to achieve the level of expenditure containment we would like to have in order to meet the budget caps that were designated by the institutions in Europe. And we strongly believe that taking the appropriate structural reforms, we will be able to not only to minimize clawbacks, but to create the appropriate budget cap in order to fund innovation.
Yeah.
Because this is a big issue, not only for Greece, but for every country. Everybody knows that gene therapies and cell therapies is the new tsunami to the healthcare systems because of the high cost of this treatment. So imagine a novel treatment costing 1.5 million euros, 2 million euros per patient. What is going to happen to the healthcare system? So we need to create all these mechanisms in order to promote innovation, contain cost, and simultaneously applying the necessary structural reforms. And when talking about reforms, I'm referring to health technology assessment procedures, the setting up of an innovation fund. This is something that we are thinking about. Specific clinical and prescription protocols in order to avoid overprescription. Of course, anti-fraud technologies regarding prescription, and the implementation of negotiation techniques in order for a new drug to be reimbursed by the insurance system. And of course, to apply all the tools that are available, such as price volume agreements, managed entry agreements, and all. We are not going to reinvent the wheel. We just need to copy and paste good practices from abroad, and I think we are on a good track, and we will be able to control the high increase of clawback.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Second one, and then I'll stop, and I'd love to hear from others. We talked a lot about this, the report about the opportunity that Greece has to become an investment destination in healthcare. The few areas that we mentioned, clinical trials, manufacturing, data and AI-driven technologies, research and all that. The government has done a lot already. Could you or would you want to give a couple of examples or the things that are already in place that the government has put in place over the last year, a couple of years, 3 years, whenever it is, and or any remaining things that are top of your list that you would want to see, quickly done?
The government has studied in depth this report, and we have done several steps since the report was published, since May this year. And first of all, we tried to map the existing situation and to see the gaps compared to what the report suggests. Vangelis was a member of the team who conducted this report. We know that the main 4 pillars have to do with manufacturing, clinical trials, basic research. It's very important for us because we strongly believe that we have a well-acknowledged scientific personnel, and of course, digital transformation and outsourcing of services offered to pharmaceutical industries. I think that we have to do little things compared to regulatory issues or improving the legislation. We are preparing some laws, and we will be able to, let me say, go public in order to attract investments in the country. As the study mentions, it's not a privilege of Boston, Cambridge, Dublin, London, or big countries to attract investments in the biotech sector. There are many other small countries, such as Israel. Okay, Israel is a different case, and other small countries that can be a part of this biotechnology sector, which is blooming, and it's not a matter of cost, it's a matter of quality. Yep. This is a finding of the study, that the high cost of the product means that you have to invest on quality and not on the scale up of the production. So this is where a small country can play a significant role. And so far, we are the Pfizer investment in Thessaloniki is a good example, and I think that we have managed to reallocate our country in the investment map, and we are under discussions with several other companies in order to come to Greece and invest and take the opportunity to and the advantage of what the country offers at legislation level, and of course the incentives that we offer, such as tax incentives or it's not only tax, but
R&D credits.
R&D credits and all that stuff.
Yeah, great. Any questions from the group? Please.
First, thank you so much for all the work they did during the difficult time of the pandemic. But also, I would like to know, is there a specific incentive that you are planning for American companies or American professionals to contribute towards this plan, this vision that you have for the future?
Whether it is an American company or a company from another country, the incentives are the same. We have already passed through the parliament several acts of law stipulating the incentives a company has when they invest in the country, what kind of funds can be used. It's the Recovery and Resilient Fund scheme, it's the European Union funds, state assistance, and it is very important to know that if somebody comes and asks for something more, we are open to discuss it and find a solution that could be a win-win solution for both parties and attract the investment in the country.
What I've seen, just to add, from the few conversations that I've been part of, a genuine drive and commitment where government officials will sit there and say, guys, if you want to come invest in Greece, let us know. Here is what we've done, and we will be there to support you. If there's blocks in the system, if the perceived barriers, we'll be there as a government. We are committed, and we'll remove the barriers to the best that we can. Some things cannot be done. So if there's things that are structurally, let's say, by the European Union or by other entities like that, the Greek government may not have full authority to do whatever they want to do. But at least from what I've seen, there is real commitment behind come to the country, invest in the country, healthcare in this particular space, but I'm sure there's others that we're talking about in other rooms. And the government is saying, anything that you may need, we'll be there for you. And it seems, to me at least, I'm an outsider, I'm not a government person, it seems very genuine. Please.
So you mentioned potential EU structural barriers. To what extent is harmonization? You mentioned EU structural barriers.
Yeah.
To what extent is harmonization part of the thinking of Greece versus someone who comes into Greece to invest, or they think of Greece as the jumping off point towards a European strategy? What's happening around that?
Yes. George, forgive me. You just gave us. So
we have a microphone.
I'm not so sure, so just to repeat it, because this
Can you hear me? Are there any issues around harmonization with the EU and potential conflicts or structural issues, as you mentioned, around Europe?
I am very far from an expert in EU policies or harmonization. But what I will say from the markets, what I see is even beyond the EU, there's a lot of talk, for example, about harmonizing tax rates globally even. That will definitely play a role.
I'm more interested in medical protocols. I have a particular interest in telehealth.
So when it comes to those areas, there is, for example, an EU directive that I think either was just published or it's being published as we speak around clinical trials and how you run them, what data you collect, all that stuff. So a lot of the areas where you could say a country like Greece was potentially lacking, and I say this lightly because it really wasn't, all of these have been removed immediately. The way you start up a clinical trial is going to be the same in most European countries. The way you run a trial is going to be the same in most European countries. So that has harmonized a lot, whether it's Bulgaria, Greece, or Germany. It's not 100% prescriptive, so there's things you can do as a country to, let's say, recruit patients faster or reach recruitment levels in a clinical trial, which is a very important element. But it's not the main differentiating point anymore. I don't know, Vassilis, anything
Yes,
to add
but
to that?
for me, it is transparent, the procedure. The European law is here. The rules are known to everybody, so every state complies to these rules. But we believe that compared to other countries, we offer significant competitive advantages, such as the position of the country, the infrastructure in the country, specific laws that provide incentives to companies, not only pharmaceutical healthcare companies, companies in general, to invest in the country. So we believe that Greece can attract more investments in the near future.
Back there.
Yes, who else? Want?
Thank you. So first of all, thank you very much for very, very interesting points. I think, Vangelis, we've seen that excellent things happen, as Vangelis did as an entrepreneur, based on a lot of scientific knowledge from Greece. And thank you very much for also giving us the information about the clinical trials, and especially the data for the patients that can be in one place and electronic diaries. So I have to tell you, I'm coming from pharmaceutical industry for many years. And when the war started in Russia and Ukraine, we had a huge problem, actually, because Ukraine is the #1 European country that they're doing clinical trials, which is a great thing that they did it for their country. And when these two countries, they closed, we could not actually run trials, and we occur about 1 year of delay because we couldn't find any other places in Europe. So I'm very, very interested in the prospect of Greece becoming a place for clinical trials. Of course, it has to be extremely competitive because we're a regulated industry here, and it has to be with all the norms and regulations. But I wanted to know if really, really you believe that we are at the state of affairs, that we have electronic records for the patients, that we can say we can invest now in the clinical trials in Greece, or if we need some time until these processes are in place. And these things, they have to be accepted by the FDA, and obviously they have to be according to the norms of this country. And if it is, then, as I said, most of the pharmaceuticals right now, they have a huge problems with clinical sites in Europe.
I'll take that, Vassilis.
Yes. Ukraine and clinical trials in Ukraine is really a big issue because many trials had to be discontinued because of the situation over there. And we said, okay, let's go and bring some clinical trials from Ukraine since they cannot proceed. It's not so easy. But regarding the comment that you made about clinical records, first of all, I would like to say that we fully comply with EU regulations. So when a protocol is applied in Greece, everybody knows that it follows EU regulations. And of course, big CROs have subsidiaries in Greece, so they follow specific rules in order to conduct the clinical trials. Regarding the patient data sets and all this stuff. So I don't think that this is the issue of why why haven't so far managed to attract more clinical trials. For me, it is a matter of competition in the area that has to do with recruitment, and of course the cost of the clinical trials, because imagine Greece and Belgium. Greece and Belgium have almost the same population, 10, 11 million people. We are not competing Belgium. We have to compete Bulgaria and Romania because they offer cheaper clinical trials, but a company that chooses another country has to compromise with quality issues, and we are not compromising with these issues, and we have acknowledged sites across the country, especially the big hospitals in Athens, in Thessaloniki, in the large cities of Greece, Patra, Giannina, Iraklio, and Alexandroupoli, and Larissa, where we have also university hospitals. So, for me, we have to focus more on how to recruit on a clinical trial, and especially a clinical trial. We are very much interested in attracting trials that have to do with rare diseases, and to set up patient registries for rare diseases. Because if you are going to test an antibiotic, okay, there's no benefit I mean, you have registries, you have the patient profile and all this stuff, but we have to go for rare diseases registries. And to this direction, as I mentioned, the 100% of the population is covered by the electronic the e-prescription, the electronic prescription system, and we are in a position where we are finalizing the implementation of the medical record of each patient in the country, and so far we have the patient's profile regarding the examinations and the subscription. Each patient has been prescribed at the level of the insurance fund. So we have a huge amount of data, and we are on the way to consolidate all this data, and under the umbrella of the medical record, to be able to have all the data needed for the conduct of a clinical trial and to have the result of this trial.
So either we are out of time or we have time for one more question. Let's do that. One more.
Can you speak about medical tourism opportunities?
I can't, but I don't know, Vassilis, can you?
I mean, that's a big, important part of the sector in Greece.
Yes, medical and wellness tourism. Any
other questions?
What I said before is that we have a strategy that we deploy regarding the especially people who are retiring in North Europe, and they are relocated in Greece, so everybody is seeking for health services. Medical and wellness tourism is a field, is a priority also for us, because let me say that the profit margin is very high, and we definitely can be competitive, especially in specific therapeutic areas. For example, teeth replacement, ophthalmology with the cataract operations, IVF, IVF procedures. So we are able to offer the whole package, both the medical service and pleasure after this service.
Can we take one more question?
Yes, sure.
I think we have only one more.
Permit me an example. Last June, after having been vaccinated 3 times, my husband and I had COVID. And actually, I was on the way to Greece and ended up there with 2.5 days of fever. My husband was here in the US. I was quite impressed, I have to say, with the performance of the Greek health sector. They looked at me, even the private doctors that we knew, and they said, "You've been vaccinated 3 times, you're healthy. We don't think you're going to need anything terribly drastic. Just wait it out." And it was quite right. They didn't give me any Paxlovid. They didn't give me, somebody gave me some inhaler in case I needed it, just monitor yourself. By contrast, and they said Paxlovid is something that is to be given for more serious cases, which is an extremely expensive drug if you remove all of the various patent situations. By contrast, here in the US, my husband had exactly the same situation, same issues. They went immediately, they gave him Paxlovid. So it looked to me like the Greek public system was being quite money conscious and quite rational, I think. Is this correct? Do I have the right? I mean, I liked it. Frankly, I liked it. Instead of being over-medicated by something that otherwise the pharmacy benefits groups here would get. What is your sense of that? And is this correct? Did I get the right impression?
Thank you for the question, but from day one, money was not the issue. When the pandemic was officially launched by the WHO. And in fact, we exceeded the budget and more cash was injected in the system. We managed to secure access to all available treatments, not only the vaccines. In Europe, we procured centrally vaccines for the population, but all the other treatments. Before coming to Paxlovid, we had the Gilead, remdesivir, the treatment for the only one existing treatment for COVID-19. It was offered free of charge at a hospital setting. No one ever paid out of pocket anything that had to do with COVID-19. And I would like to remind you that we were one of the, probably the only one country who offered free rapid tests to students, to tourists, when they visited the country, to students when they had to go to school, to public health sector employees, to hospital employees, and all this kind of critical population that had to do with the operation of the country. And then we secured access to monoclonal antibodies, and when the antiviral treatments were available, we again provided access to Paxlovid and the other treatment from MSD, but under specific circumstances, because you had to fulfill specific prerequisites. Yeah. If you belong to a vulnerable population group, yes, you could have access. So money was not an issue for us. and this is why you did well. We more than doubled ICUs in the country in 1 year, and because I have personal experience being minister at that period of time, money was never the issue. And I'm very proud to say, because everybody saw what was happening in other countries. We had Italy next to us, especially the first wave, that we did all the best in order to protect every citizen of Greece against COVID-19.
And very successfully, because we all know that Minister Kontozamanis, in fact, is the Anthony Fauci of Greece. And it is thanks to his excellent handling of the pandemic that we made the first page in New York Times. So all this was his work, and we thank you very much for that.
Yes, but Fauci is resigning.
But you are not. You are the advisor to the Prime Minister and ready to discuss a lot of projects that will come and a lot of investments that will come in Greece in the health care sector, very often because of you, of the way you will handle everything.
It was not because of me, it was a teamwork. And I was proud to be a part of this team. And
but the teamwork has a leader.
Yes, and the leader has a name. He's the Prime Minister of the country.
Of course.
And
of course.
I have to say that if I have 2 minutes, because I would like to do my psychological now session.
For that, we'll make the time, Vassilis. Okay.
No, it was really difficult when we were sitting around the table, all the ministers, and had to decide about clawback. It was only Minister Kikilias, me, and Sotiris Tsiotras at the first meeting who were telling we have to go for lockdown, to shut down operations.
While you had Italy next to us,
yes,
with millions of people dying.
Adonis was coming, the economy, the Minister of Tourism, tourism, the Minister of the economics, so what's going to happen to the economy. But when the days were passing, it was a unanimous decision. The decision was made by the Prime Minister, but it was a wise and timely decision. That's why we managed to have these results. And then we had to run a lot. We didn't have masks in the country. You know what was going at a global level. You were reading about one country stealing somehow masks from another country in China.
Yes.
Okay, this is what happened to us also, because you had to pay cash, and we set up a logistics center in Shanghai, and thanks to Mr. Vassilis from Aegean and other prominent
benefactor, because he helped a lot.
Greek
entrepreneur,
a ship owner who had a cargo company, and other people, we managed to bring protective equipment, personal protective equipment from China. We had to change the course of the Andonov, you know, the plane, the Andonov. Now Russians took it down. We had to change the course because it had to refuel the plane in specific countries, and we didn't want to land the plane because they were going to get our stuff. So these are
exceptional circumstances.
Examples that that really happened, and I'm writing a book about this, so I hope that you buy it. It was a great experience, and
And you
It
never
was
want to
a-
have ever again.
it was a teamwork, and
Certainly.
we
It was a
managed
teamwork.
to rebrand Greece at global level, and this
Yes.
is
Yeah.
this is the best feeling that you have even now when you are outside the game.
But this is the feeling that we all have. We are very proud when talking about the pandemic to everyone because of the way you handled the situation in our country. I mean, becoming the first page of the New York Times for that when the whole world was facing all these problems, and complimenting us for the way we handled the situation is a big present to all of us, to all Greeks. So thank you, really.